Hey guys, what's going on? Joey Case here, your Top Care coordinator, with our first edition of the Top Care Talks. Basically, what I would like to do as part of these videos or audio files is just talk about some of the information I've also been sending out by email and maybe give me a little chance to expand a little further in some more details that I'll typically get to talk about. I also know that some people are more auditory processors. They like hearing things versus reading them. So I thought this might just be another way to get some information out there. So for our first talk, what I would like to go into is, and it runs with something that I sent out recently to student athletes, this idea of some strategies, some coping skills to deal with difficult people. You know, the holidays are right around the corner, and, you know, for some of you, it means getting off campus, or it might mean going back home, being around friends, being around family. And for some, it may mean having to interact with some difficult people. You probably already have people coming to mind. You don't have to give me names, but just hearing that description, some people probably already come to mind. Maybe it's those little extra or dramatic or other kinds of terms we could use to describe them. Probably the people that you're already picturing in your mind hearing this. So I thought it'd be a good time to discuss maybe some strategies for how we can cope and deal with some difficult personalities. Now, pulling from a school of psychotherapy called dialectic behavior therapy, or DBT, I want to properly give some credit there. But keep in mind the acronym or the letters GIVE, or the word give. Pretty easy to remember with Thanksgiving, generally a time to give thanks. Well, the word give can also be used here in this context. The letter G stands for being gentle. If you know you're going to be interacting with a difficult person, somebody you've had beef with in the past, or somebody where there's been drama or other things along there, first of all, just be gentle when you approach the person. Try to avoid judgmental language or personal attacks. Just try to avoid those if you can. A metaphor I used in the email, and I'll mention it here too. What if you knew there were a wasp hive in the window of your dorm or apartment? What would happen if you walked over to that wasp nest and started hitting it with a stick or a baseball bat or something? I mean, you'd probably get stung, right? I mean, you hit a bee's hive or a wasp hive, that's probably what's going to happen. Wasp are going to wasp. There's my cheesy dad joke there, but that's what they do. It's not a big surprise. So to the same extent, if you know you're going to be around difficult people when you're on your off time, don't hit the wasp nest, so to speak. Difficult people are going to difficult people, and if you know you don't want to get stung, right? So again, if you know that's coming, be gentle with the person. Again, just avoid that judgmental language, avoid the personal attacks, all those kinds of things. The letter I stands for being interested. Actually be interested and listen to what the other person is saying. Sometimes when we deal with difficult personalities, we start this idea of tilting at windmills. That expression basically means that we start fighting with imaginary enemies. So maybe you start getting upset or argumentative because you think the difficult person has said or done something. Or maybe you're still mad about something that happened 5 years ago and you're still talking and dealing with that. So listen carefully to make sure you've heard what the other person's actually saying, and really try to avoid that trap of planning your response while the other person's talking. A lot of times a person will be talking, and in your head, all you're doing is planning the next thing you want to say. Try to break yourself of that habit. The letter V stands for validate. Validate the other person's feelings. Now, here's where it can get really interesting or tricky. You don't have to agree with the other person. You don't have to agree with their thoughts and feelings. And another part of this, people are entitled to their own emotions and thoughts, even if they're wrong. People all the time are free to make dumb choices, and they're free to be wrong. You don't have to agree with their life choices to still validate how they feel. So remember to keep your emotional boundaries when you're dealing with a difficult person. The idea that they are them, you are you, and again, you're different people, and that's perfectly okay. And then the letter E stands for basically being easy mannered. Use a little humor, smile, be diplomatic. Try not to let the other person bring you down. Um, one of the things you'll see with difficult people is that they want other people to feel, they want to get them emotional. So maybe the other person wants to bring you down or wants to make you feel a certain thing. Just be yourself. Don't feed into those kind of attacks. Again, your goal should be to survive going home for a few days or a few weeks, whatever the case might be. Be as diplomatic as you can. And again, if you can remember that letter Give, or the word give, at least it could be a starting point to having some maybe less toxic interactions with difficult people. Because remember, to use another metaphor, it takes two to tango, so to speak. For relationships, for there to be drama, to be arguments, it does take two or more people. I mean, if a person's arguing by themselves, we're talking about something like schizophrenia in that moment. So again, even if you're not the difficult person, you still have a role in this dynamic. And usually, if you change your steps, so to speak, it might change the other person's approach as well. But again, you're not responsible for changing other people. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day, a whole other podcast. So again, remember to give in your interactions. I'll also throw out a disclaimer, as with all the information I'm sending out. This is strictly for educational purposes. It's not intended to be a replacement for therapy. Since the details of your situation are fact dependent, you should also, if you feel the need, speak with a licensed mental health professional like myself or somebody else for personal advice regarding your situation. This is simply for educational purposes only. And with that, I hope you have a great holiday break. Relax, get some rest. We can talk about self-care. There was an email that went out recently about that as well. But with that said, go Tops. Until next time.